in order to advance Hamas's interests. But I think Hamas is trying to extract maximum benefit. The Israelis are trying to ensure they get the maximum number of people out. The Israelis are bent on destroying Hamas as an organization before this is over. Hamas is bent on sustaining itself as an organization, and where all this actually is, where people portray it to be, where it's going, is, I think a mystery even to people in the negotiations, because everybody is negotiating.
You touched on this already, but when we talk about that Rafah offensive, does it appear that that is still imminent, like that is still going to happen?
We've heard a lot less about it. I would imagine that Israel has to at least prepare for it, so it has a credible threat. I'm not sure Israel wants to go through with it because it could have some very negative fallout among important allies, including the United States and Britain. And you've seen some of the David Cameron statements on this and others. But I think the Israelis feel they need something to focus the mind, to create some deadlines, to get Hamas to make decisions about what it's willing to do. So I would guess that Israel is continuing to prepare, but it will be more measured, at least initially, than a lot of people were expecting several weeks ago.
I do want to talk about some of the comments. You kind of mentioned it there, but from David Cameron over in the UK. Did his comments essentially saying that they don't feel comfortable with the Rafah offensive, the thought of that, is that what would be expected from the UK? Does it show any sort of shift in the UK's feelings about Israel and the war?
I don't think there's a shift. The war has been a very, very polarizing issue in Britain. Britain, of course, has a more intimate relationship with Israel than many countries because of its mandate presence. It was the end of the British mandate in Palestine that created Israel and a Palestinian state that never actually came into being. But I think that David Cameron is in many ways channeling mainstream European positions, which is, yes, Israel has to fight Hamas. It's terrorists who are holding innocent women and children and massacre people in Israel. Absolutely fight Hamas. But you can't do it at the expense of innocent Palestinians or without regard for the lives of innocent Palestinians. And I think for a lot of people in Europe and some people in the United States, and certainly many, many people in the global South, there really is this sense that Israel absolutely needs to fight, but the way Israel seems to be fighting without regard to civilian suffering also isn't acceptable. And when I've spoken to Israelis, it comes down to the fact that many Israelis feel that there is such overwhelming support for Hamas in the Palestinian community as they see it, that they really are fighting Palestinians, that there really isn't such thing as innocent Palestinian civilians. And I think as the rest of the world looks, it says, but these people are innocent. And what about this cycle of radicalization and trauma you're setting off when you attack civilians brutally month after month? And again, where this all settles down, and you're seeing, I think, the Biden administration recalibrating a little bit. You're seeing Britain trying to move a little bit. You haven't really seen people talking in the Israeli press and in the Israeli public about Palestinian civilian suffering. And I think that gulf is getting larger. And there's a question as to whether there'll be a break or whether the Israeli public opinion will move. And the Benny Gantz visit to both the U.S. and the U.K. last week, I think, was intended by people on the U.S. and U.K. side to begin to share some of the concerns about just how wide the gulf about civilian suffering is getting and what it might mean if it continues to widen.
All right, John, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and help break down some of the latest headlines here out of the Middle East. Is there anything else you want to add about any of this before I let you go?
Again, I would keep in mind this is not only a negotiation, so what people say isn't necessarily what they mean, but everybody understands that while we're focused on the day-to-day, both the Israelis and Hamas and the Palestinians more broadly see this as a multi-year conflict, and people are focused on the long term. We're paying attention to the day-to-day, but I think they're negotiating with a much longer eye than a lot of people trying to analyze steps are focusing on.
All right, John Alterman there. Thank you so much again for taking the time to be here with us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Josh.